The deranged man was burying his daughter alive, determined to kill his own child, Rose, in order to seize his late wife's inheritance. However, the young girl, driven by her fierce will, clawed her way out of the earth. At that moment, 7 enlightened masters descended from the sky, rescued Rose, and took her in as their disciple, teaching her unparalleled martial arts. Years later, the masters revealed Rose's true identity and returned the company they had managed on her behalf. Now, at just 18 years old, Rose still appeared innocent, but no one knew that she possessed extraordinary martial arts, top-tier medical skills, and a fortune worth billions. This time, she returned in glory, determined to reclaim everything that was rightfully hers. At a prestigious wedding, Rose suddenly barged in, interrupting her half-sister's wedding. Her sister, who was attempting to impersonate Rose to marry into a wealthy family, was furious and tried to hit her. However, Rose swiftly flipped her to the ground, earning her the nickname Wrestling Girl. Wrestling Girl then turned to the groom, Jack, for help, but Jack showed more interest in Rose, saying he didn't like fakes and only chose her sister to honor an agreement, reminding Rose not to have any inappropriate expectations of him. Rose sneered, replying that marrying him was just to get revenge on her father. Jack didn't believe her, thinking she was being stubborn, and handed her a bank card with $1 billion. To his surprise, Rose casually tossed back a card with an even higher limit. "Alright, if neither of you wants these cards, I'll take them." Unwilling to give up, Wrestling Girl tried to seduce Jack at a bar, but Rose was not about to let her scheme succeed. Dressed provocatively, Rose instantly caught Jack's eye. A man, unhappy with Rose's sudden appearance, humiliatingly demanded that she sing for him, waving a wad of cash. Undaunted, Rose tossed a handful of diamonds onto the table and ordered him to bark like a dog. The once arrogant man immediately became a lapdog, tempted by the diamonds. Then, another rich young man decided to humiliate Rose at the gambling table, proposing that the loser should strip. Rose agreed, rolling a dice so hard that it cracked open with 19 points. The young man tried to renege on his loss, only to be slammed onto the gambling table by Rose, who made him bow down. Jack intervened, but Rose punched him in the face. Enraged, Jack threw Rose over his shoulder and carried her to his car. When Rose kicked at him, he grabbed her ankle, pulling her closer, thinking she was jealous, and left a punishing kiss on her neck. In return, Rose subdued him with acupuncture, threatening that if he misbehaved again, she'd make sure he could never get it up. She then bit his neck in retaliation for his earlier punishment. The next day, the two went to meet Jack's parents. Despite having been away for years, Rose's manners and grace won over Jack's parents, who even gave her generous gifts. However, Jack's cousin, filled with hostility, insulted Rose, claiming she'd never be as good as Wrestling Girl. But in the next second, Rose slapped her to the ground. "Let's call her Wrestling Girl number 2. Crying, Wrestling Girl number 2 turned to Jack's mother for help, but the mother simply advised Rose to be gentler next time. Rose then decided to confront her ruthless father. Jack handed her a brick, and without hesitation, Rose smashed it against a plaque bearing her father's name, declaring that everything should have belonged to her mother. Bodyguards tried to stop her, but Jack stepped back, knowing they were no match for Rose. Sure enough, Rose effortlessly immobilized them with acupuncture points. Her father and his family were terrified, while Wrestling Girl, having learned nothing, challenged her again, only to receive another slap. Rose coldly ordered her father to prepare the property deed and 60 billion yuan within 3 days, or she would expose his affair with a mistress and the attempted murder of his daughter. Rose arrived at the company her masters had entrusted to her, expecting it to be a grand enterprise. To her dismay, it turned out to be a small clinic specializing in infertility. Rose couldn't help but wonder if her masters were playing a trick on her. Just then, the rich young man who had previously threatened her disguised himself and came for treatment, but Rose immediately diagnosed his impotence. Embarrassed, he fled the clinic. Jack, having learned that Rose was skilled in medicine, eagerly asked for a checkup himself. Rose bluntly told him, "You'll have 2 children." Jack smiled meaningfully at her. One night, while Rose was bathing and forgot her clothes, Jack kindly brought her a towel, only to be accused of being a pervert. Jack, unapologetic, replied, "You're my wife, what's wrong with looking?" He then scooped her up in a princess carry to the bed, kissing her passionately. However, Rose retaliated with pepper spray, and Jack shouted, "Attempted murder of your husband." The next day, a humbled rich young man came back to seek Rose's treatment, but Jack refused to let her see other men. Forced to compromise, Rose performed a pulse diagnosis by thread, a technique so impressive that it left the young man in awe. When Rose returned to visit Jack's parents, Jack's aunt maliciously brought up rumors about him and a female celebrity. Jack, recognizing his aunt's ill intentions, calmly addressed the matter, showing his affection for Rose by cuddling her and feeding her a grape in front of the aunt. Rose countered by bringing up the aunt's husband's affair, leaving the aunt fuming. After dinner, a rainstorm forced Jack and Rose to stay the night. Jack, under the pretense of concern, held Rose close and even suggested they sleep together, but Rose wasn't having it. Jack was left frustrated, wondering why his wife was so oblivious to his feelings. To make matters worse, Rose, fresh from the shower in an oversized shirt, stirred up Jack's desire, but a pillow thrown at him reminded him he'd be sleeping on the floor. Later that night, Jack, unable to resist, gently embraced Rose as she slept, admiring how cute and gentle she looked compared to her usual fiery self. He couldn't help but kiss her, only to be kicked off the bed the next second. A woman claiming to be Jack's wife showed up at Rose's clinic but turned out to be a delusional employee trying to marry into the wealthy family. Rose swiftly put her in her place, and when the woman brought bodyguards to intimidate her, Rose easily subdued them with a single needle. The police arrived, but Rose had prepared surveillance footage to prove her innocence. When Jack came to pick Rose up from the station, everyone realized she was indeed his wife. Jack teased her about her plain attire and bought her several outfits, using the opportunity to ask her to repay him with her body. Rose, refusing to get entangled with him, spotted a woman who resembled her mother in the street, only to discover that her mother had truly passed away. Showing her vulnerable side to Jack, he held her gently and dried her hair with care, making Rose feel a motherly warmth from him. But then Jack scooped her up again, saying he only wanted to hear her call him Daddy in bed. Rose was shocked, but Jack only placed her on the bed and sat beside her, guarding her all night. The next day, Jack came down with a fever, weakly clinging to Rose's waist, refusing to let her leave, asking for noodles made by her and even requesting to be fed. Rose told him to stop pushing his luck, but her fiery personality remained. Rose later ran into Wrestling Girl at the bar. Wrestling Girl tried to drug Rose, but having already seen through the plot, Rose pretended to faint and then beat up the unlucky conspirators, extracting their plan. Rose turned the tables, countering their scheme, and even took compromising photos of Wrestling Girl with a man. After drinking, Rose became a different person altogether, calling Jack husband, asking for hugs, and even confessing how handsome he was, planting a kiss on him. Jack joked that Rose was lusting after him, while Rose cheekily argued that they hadn't consummated their marriage and were bound to divorce, so it would be a waste not to kiss him. Jack was displeased, kissed her deeply, and fulfilled the marriage bed. The next morning, Rose woke up sore all over, realizing she had slept with Jack, and hurriedly escaped from bed, embarrassed. The celebrity who had once been rumored with Jack sought out Rose, playing the innocent card, advising Rose not to misunderstand her relationship with Jack. Rose knew Jack had nothing to do with her but noticed how the celebrity acted shy and hesitant, clearly trying to make her suspect Jack. So Rose played along, sighing, "Jack doesn't love me, my mother-in-law blames me for not bearing children, and Jack has always thought of you. He even hopes you'll have a child for him." The foolish celebrity, overjoyed, went to confess to Jack, only to be thrown out by him, calling her crazy. When Jack learned that Rose had set the whole thing up, he angrily pinned her down on the bed, kissing her forcefully, saying, "If you want a child that badly, I can give you one myself." Just as Jack was about to take things further, a phone call interrupted, and Rose quickly turned the tables, pinning Jack down before slipping away. Jack, unwilling to let things go, used a land bidding project to lure Rose, knowing her father would want that land, and Rose saw it as an opportunity to bring him down. Jack went with the flow and handed the project over to Rose, but on the condition that she fulfill her duties as his wife. As he spoke, he gently pinched Rose's earlobe, kissed her dominantly, and whispered that he wanted a daughter as adorable as she was. The next day, Jack playfully complained that he was exhausted from the previous night, to which Rose retorted with mild annoyance. Taking the opportunity, Jack hinted that he wouldn't mind things getting a bit wilder, and pulled her back into his arms once again. Before long, Jack's first love returned from abroad, and rumors began to circulate that he would abandon Rose for her. Rose discovered that this first love was suffering from a terminal illness but was being forced by her family to seduce Jack. Rose cured her and sent her away. However, Jack mistakenly thought Rose had driven her away and angrily questioned if Rose had gone too far. Unwilling to explain, Rose simply said, "If you're unhappy, we can just get divorced." Jack was furious at how casually she brought up divorce and demanded to know his place in her heart. Enraged, Rose left home. Her best friend analyzed that Rose was jealous, hard on the outside but soft inside, and had long fallen in love with Jack. Alone, Jack tossed and turned in bed, thinking of Rose, and when he went to her room, he found she had already left. In a panic, he made over 100 calls. When Rose calmly blocked him, Jack finally realized he had misunderstood her. Jack knew that Rose would participate in the land bidding the next day, as it was her chance to bring down her father. He teamed up with Rose's senior disciple to drive up the price, and eventually, Rose's father paid a staggering $10.5 billion for a worthless piece of land. Jack found Rose refusing to let her go, and forcefully hugged her, declaring, "Even if you hit me, I won't let go." Rose, without hesitation, kicked him in the groin, leaving him bent over in pain. Helpless, Jack watched her walk away. His mother then called and scolded Jack, giving him Rose's address and warning him not to come home without his wife. His mother truly was the ultimate ally. Jack played the sympathy card again and made a heartfelt confession to Rose, finally winning her back. He scooped her up, promising to perform well in bed that night. Meanwhile, Rose's father couldn't afford to pay for the land and was forced to take out a bank loan, only to discover that Rose was the one controlling the bank. It had all been a trap, and he had no chance to recover. Furious, he had a stroke and was hospitalized. Wrestling Girl tried to attack Rose, but the outcome was obvious. Rose's stepmother even called the police on her, but she was the one taken away, as Rose had reported her father's tax evasion. The entire family was not only facing huge debts but also prison time. With everything settled, Rose went down the mountain to help her senior disciple celebrate, and Jack attended as well. The two politely shook hands in public, but secretly, they were at odds. Rose's senior disciple, who had cherished her since childhood, regretted letting Jack steal her away and warned him to treat her well, or he wouldn't let it go. Jack, seeing how close his wife was to her senior disciple, became jealous. Rose drank a familiar wine and began reminiscing about her 7 masters in the distant mountains. Drunk, she admitted that she had planned to leave after her revenge. Hearing this, Jack panicked, but Rose confessed that she couldn't bear to leave him. A few years later, Jack and Rose entrusted their twins to the care of her 7 masters, planning to enjoy some time together. However, these 2 children were even more mischievous than Rose had been. Their daughter designed all sorts of pranks for the masters, while their son had them drink his poison concoctions. Even with their supreme martial arts skills, the masters were worn out by these 2 little troublemakers and could only shout in the distance, "Come get your little rascals!"